Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. You're listening to Wholehearted Men with Sonica.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Wholehearted Men Show with your host, Sonica Kamuza. And today I'm going to be talking about family, life, and marriage and kids and all that good stuff with a dear friend of mine, Hugh Molotsi. And Hugh is out there in California and took time out of his real busy schedule to come and hang out with us at the reboot of the Wholehearted Men Show. So before Hugh and I get started, I wanted to, Hugh, I wanted to share with our audience a little bit about your bio. And I'm going to save your voice and save you by actually doing it for you. So here's a little bit of background about Hugh before we get started. Hugh Molotsi is the founder and CEO of Ujama, a mobile platform for parents to connect, communicate, and collaborate. Hugh also advises and invests in startups and is the co-author of The Entrepreneur's Journey, a book on how to develop a culture of innovation at large companies. In 2015, Hugh concluded a 22-year career at Intuit, where his last position was engineering fellow and vice president of innovation. During his Intuit tenure, Hugh worked on QuickBooks and several other small business offerings. Hugh has been a serial innovator and helped launch several new businesses at Intuit, including Intuit Payments. Hugh is passionate about grassroots innovation and giving voice to good ideas, wherever those ideas may come from. In February 2019, Hugh was appointed as non-executive director to the board of Barlow World, a multinational distributor of leading global brands headquartered in Johannesburg, South Africa. Outside work, he was committed to helping undeserved youth. He has served on the board of All Star Code, a prep program connecting young men of color to the tech industry, and is the past president of the board of directors of Fresh Lifelines for Youth, a nonprofit agency that runs programs for at-risk youth. Hugh holds a Master of Science degree in Computer Engineering from Santa Clara University and a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Engineering Technology from the University of Southern Mississippi. Hugh is married to Michelle and is a proud father of 2 daughters. So, when you hear all that, Hugh, I know what it feels like for me. So when you hear all that, are you still that little boy at Woodlands? Woodlands Primary, or do you actually embrace all that?
It's probably a combination of both. I definitely still identify with, the little boy trying to find his way in the world and trying to discover who he is. Plus, I do embrace the journey more as a feeling like I've been very blessed, especially in those who have helped me along the way.
Okay. Well, why don't you tell us about those who've helped you along the way? Why don't you your opportunity to give out some shout outs?
Yeah, I mean, we could spend the whole show just on that topic. Probably it's good as a foundation for people to know my family background. My parents were both South African exiles. They left South Africa in the early 60s because they did not want to be part of the Bantu education system that had been introduced there as part of apartheid, where the white government decided an inferior education was good enough for blacks. And my parents, both being newly trained teachers, did not want to be teachers in that system. And so that's how they ended up settling in what was then Northern Rhodesia, and spent the next 30 plus years of their lives there. And so I grew up, born and grew up in Zambia. And, first and foremost, a lot of people will say this, but Zambian people are very, very welcoming, very generous, very kind, and they were very instrumental in supporting the struggles of neighboring countries, whether it was Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, South Africa. Zambia played a very pivotal role. And I grew up identifying as a Zambian. I mean, that's how much I felt at home in Zambia. And I still do to this day,
Reg card.
with my registration card. So so I'm born into a situation of of benefiting from the kindness of a country that welcomed us, so much so that my parents became citizens of Zambia, and I was, of course, born a citizen. And so I think that's where it starts. My parents, both being educators, were very committed to making sure that children had a good education, a good foundation in their life. So they certainly made a lot of sacrifices for us. And again, I think just along the way, if I think especially of the teachers that I met, the friends that I met, it's story after story of people who were generous and kind when you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be. And so, I always feel like my journey is one of, benefiting from that kindness. And certainly without it, I certainly wouldn't be sitting here today.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know that your family, in terms of size, you have siblings, right? You have siblings. You've got a few siblings. You don't have to tell us all about them, but you're like, are you the only boy? You got brothers, sisters, just for our audience, so that they kind of get a good feel about you.
Yeah, I'm the last born. I do have 3 older sisters, and I do have a half brother who I didn't grow up with. He grew up in South Africa, an eldest brother. So there are five of us total.
Okay, good. And you've connected with your half brother. You're
Yes,
connected.
I have, as you can imagine. After freedom came to South Africa, my parents eventually moved back. And, that's where pretty much my whole extended family lives. And so that's where I have gone back regularly. And part of the benefit has been me forming strong relationships with several of my cousins, and certainly probably the top of the list, my brother and I gotten to know each other. Again, we didn't spend much time together as children, but certainly as adults we have.
Excellent. And I think just to segue into where we're going, that's really a big part of what we like to talk about here at the Whole Hearted Men Show, which is things that affect how men show up, how we show up in our hearts and how we show up in the world. Excuse me. And I think that whole spectrum of emotional self-connection and mental awareness in different areas, whether it's while you're doing work, whether it's in your relationships at home or relationships with siblings and all that, is not an area that we focus on. We focus on as men. We're deliberate about developing those muscles. We develop the muscles. I was listening to your bio and, knowing you quite a bit. I was listening to your bio and I'm like, that's really the model of how we show up as men, right? We're supposed to go out there and become somebody, right? And give back. And we'd see that about position. It's about, what money we have, what cars we drive, where we live and all that stuff. And that's the mark. Whereas it's not so much about how do I understand my world around me and how do I get loved and give love, So here at, the Wholehearted Men Show, and even with the Institute for Wholehearted Men, my goal has been engaging men at that place, engaging that men at that place. And today I want to engage you from there. I want to engage you on things which I've been curious about, even though I kind of know you. I'm curious. And also I think that other men who are trying to grow, we need to have these kinds of conversations. So knowing a little bit about your background, why did you get married? And I'm going to ask you two questions. Why did you get married is the first one. And then why did you get married again? Okay. Those are my first two questions for you.
Yeah, the first one is a really good question because I did think about it quite a lot before I got married. But why do I want to get married? And, I had a very strong sense of I definitely wanted to get married, but I didn't have a compelling narrative on to explain why. I just knew that with strong conviction that I didn't want to be this, this lifelong bachelor. So I think a lot of it is just feeling like that. In many ways, is the path of life is to have a family, raise a family, have a life partner. I think there's a lot of things in society, in culture, that pushes us that way. And more power to those people who decide, no, I'm going to forge my own path. But certainly in my case, I felt, like I said, a very strong conviction that no, I want to be on that path. And so, yes, I think having that life partner, that family, was a very big part of my my sense of what I want, what I expected to have happen in my life. And so, it's not the best of explanations, but that's probably the best I can do.
Okay. Was there an element of completion? You know what I mean? Like, I've done all these things. I'm having success, economic success, work success, and I need to just complete the picture, or was it more so kind of like what you're saying, which is it's really something I want and it's something that is deep rooted in me? Because I like to ask this question because I wonder whether some men come at it from an aspect of it's an expectation, or more so I am modeling something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's an excellent question. For me, the two are very connected. It's hard for me to say it was one versus the other because, to your point, that sense of this is what's expected, this is what would complete, a life of accomplishment, is very tied to this sense of what is it that I want to do, what I want for myself. It's hard to tease those things apart. So, and that's why I was saying, it's hard to come up with a strong reason. Certainly when before I got married the second time, I had come to peace with this idea that I may not get married again. I was very much at peace with it. And then, of course, as soon as that happened, then I ended up meeting Michelle. But
Right.
But I would say I certainly didn't have that type of peace of mind before the first time, because I think I was much more in the mode of, yep, this is something I need to do. I'm getting older. You better start
Right.
working on it.
Right. And I remember this is something you probably we probably both remember it when we met after the first time, and I looked in your eyes, and I can still remember because we have a picture of it somewhere, But I remember the pain, and we had a very brief conversation. Remember, we were standing in the basement, and you, unsolicited, you said something to me. You said something to me and I recognized immediately. And that was, I can't remember how many years ago that was, Hugh.
Wow.
Many years ago. We were at the christening, one of, the christening out in Virginia somewhere. And you said something. And later on, when I went home, I was like, he's in pain. But what was funny was because I wasn't at a place where I could articulate that in my own heart, in a way that was healthy and wholesome. I couldn't provide any support. You understand what I'm saying? And I remember how that afternoon played out. When you sat in the chair and all you did was, you did your usual thing of taking pictures, but it was like in the back of my head, I was like, that was a moment. Now where I am, that was a moment for men to engage. You know what I mean? For us to provide support. So just to let you know that I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten that instance. I haven't forgotten that conversation.
I'm wondering what I said.
You know what? We'll talk about it offline at some point, right?
Okay. No, but
Right.
it's certainly accurate what you're saying. I was certainly still in recovery mode at that time because it was a painful situation. So certainly, I would not dispute the observation you made. But what I will say is that like many things in life, setbacks turn out to be blessings. And I think probably the thing I would say, which I hope is helpful for others to hear, is that when in relationships, it takes two people to make it work, and usually when it doesn't work, it's because of problems that both people are bringing into the relationship. And to really grow as a person, you need to be able to acknowledge the problems that you bring. I think it's very easy to focus on all the issues that the other person brought into the relationship. But as I said, I think in hindsight, it was a tremendous, there was tremendous growth that happened for me because of that painful experience. And part of it was, we spent 8 months in marriage counseling. So, this was not a, a marriage that went down without a fight. So we did fight for it. And the counseling, again, I'd recommend this for all married couples. But what it really did do for me was provide an insight for me where I was completely blind to the type of issues that I bring to relationships. I think in many ways I was full of myself. I thought, here I am, a very accomplished person. I don't drink. I don't have the normal vices, hang out with the guys until late at night, all the things that I would think about. Oh, these are the problems that most men have. Look at me, I'm a model person. And so I think with that type of thinking, what I overlooked were some really serious things that can make it difficult to be a partner for a partner of mine. And so going through that experience was very helpful, especially, by the way, I'm not going to claim that I'm a perfect partner now, because Michelle would probably overhear this and want to come on the show to issue a correction. but definitely, I feel like much better equipped to handle the challenges of marriage because of that experience.
That's excellent. So was that what put you in a place where you were more open to meet Michelle and kind of transition into your second marriage? Was the work you did through counseling, ultimately, and I think what you're saying is so poignant. Counseling is something which I recommend to everybody. Therapy is something I recommend to everybody. But I think what's great is people may think, oh, counseling and you do therapy and it fixes the marriage. In this case, you did, like you said, you fought for it. But ultimately, what it helped you realize is that maybe this wasn't it. You know what I mean? And so do you believe that that kind of is what helped you, put you in a place where you were ready for your next step, and you were kind of in a better mental place to get married again?
Yeah, I would say definitely. Like I said, it was tremendous growth experience. I mean, I'll mention a couple of things that stand out for me. One is, there's the adage, pick your battles. And I joke to people, but in a way, I'm very serious about this, that in my mind, when people say pick your battles, I think it's, well, they mean, 1 out of every 5, maybe 1 out of every 10 situations are the things that you should fight for. And in reality, it's more like 1 out of 100. and uh, and so what if I was counseling somebody who's about to get married or a young married couple, I would really emphasize that point. It's like, no, you really have to pick your battles. You have to really decide, is this thing really worth fighting for? And what you'll find is if you're really, really thoughtful about it, you'll find like most of the time it's not. Most of the time you're just tripping. And in fact, a lot of the times, I think I've seen other people have this issue. I know for me it was a big one. We make a mountain out of a molehill because in our thinking it's, oh, I better not let this be a precedent. I better not let this be now mean that this is okay going into the future. So we start to fight the battle as if we've received 15 blows to the head when it was barely a tap on the shoulder kind of thing. And so really being thoughtful about what are the battles you want to fight. I feel like that was something I just didn't appreciate at all. But I got a whole different perspective on it. And another thing that I've also seen was definitely an issue that I brought to relationships is, you're out there, maybe you're on vacation, maybe you're out for a nice dinner, you're having a good time, and then something gets said or happens that you don't like, and you want a resolution in the moment. And all that does is it spoils.
Right.
It spoils the good time,
Right.
And this is something I was very guilty of on several occasions. And what I learned through counseling is that one way of making sure you're really truly picking your battles is to make a mental note and say, okay, let me bring this up later. Let me bring this up on Sunday. And what'll often happen when you defer the discussion like that, a lot of times you'll forget about it. Or with distance you'll find it wasn't actually that important.
Right.
And so that's also a helpful mechanism to help you truly pick your battles. But most importantly, you don't end up ruining good times.
Right.
And so that was an important lesson. I think the other thing, also that was important to mention is that, I went into the first marriage, we had danced around this topic of, are we going to have kids and not have kids? And, I think that probably was the sort of underlying biggest mistake, because as it turned out, I definitely wanted to have kids. My partner did not. And, it's one of those, that's a very hard situation to resolve. And so what I realized was that, in my mind, I'd had this list of what I wanted from a partner. And having, again, gone through this experience, I was able to realize that actually the list is much simpler than this complicated thing I had created.
Right.
Because ultimately, it was about family. And so first and foremost was finding somebody who had the same outlook on family and what she wanted for her children, what she wanted in that relationship, or realizing that was primary. And I think that was helpful, because literally the very first conversation I had with Michelle, sitting next to her on a plane seat.
I was going to bring that up, but you're flowing, because I know that story. So go ahead. I'm going to let you flow.
Literally, the first conversation, somehow we got onto that topic of family, and was like, wow, okay, she seems to be exactly what I now understand I want from a life partner.
Yeah, that was it's funny you were saying that, but let me just kind of rehash. I really like what you're saying about looking for resolution in the moment. That was something that I wrote down, looking for resolution in the moment, because I think you're an engineer by trade, right? You're
That's
an engineer by trade. And so what ends up happening, I think, for people who are very analytical is that you're looking for a solution,
Exactly.
and your synapses don't necessarily make the connection until you have some sort of a solution. And the solution has to really be like 2 + 2 is equal to 4. You know what I mean? And if somebody is arguing otherwise, then there's just not going to be that connection. And I think that's what happens a lot of times in relationships, where you need what you need, and that kind of overshadows you giving the other person what they need as well. And sometimes what the other person needs is space.
That's right.
I just need space. I need space from you, and I think what's hard you said something earlier on about understanding that, you were talking about, hey, as time goes by, it dilutes to kind of amalgamate what you were saying into one word. It may dilute it one way or the other. I really think that for a person like me, and, I want to share, is that what kind of changed my perspective was having counseling and having somebody ask me a very blunt and very straightforward question, which is, do you want to be married? That was it. Go home, think about it, come back tomorrow, let us know, because we are not going to do any therapy or any work with you until you answer that one question. Because if you don't want to be married and you want to be out there doing your thing and you want to be single, no problem, go ahead. You know what I mean? Answer that question no, go about your business. If you answer that question yes, then you're going to have to do some things. And one of those things is understanding that at the end of the day, I ain't going nowhere, you ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? So even, people always say, oh, he slept in the living room or he slept in the other bedroom. I ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, we're going to have to resolve whatever it is. And I think that when you don't operate from I've got an escape hatch, I've got a parachute, I can jump out of the plane, I can disappear. When you don't operate from that, you actually put yourself in a place for success,
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah. So my next question, seeing as you started the plane conversation, which, is how did you know she was the one?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it was, as I'd said earlier, in a moment of, I was at peace with this notion that, okay, I'm fine being a single guy. And in fact, what it just meant was I let go of a lot of anxieties. As you mentioned, we had met, and I was still in a painful place, but now I felt like, okay, there's a lot of pressure off of me that I've been putting on myself, and in fact, one of the things I did was just to make a decision to just more embrace life, focus on what's positive and good. And one of the favorite people I had worked with, his name was Scott. He had worked with him at Intuit, then he left California and moved to Nebraska, and so me and another friend had decided, let's go visit him. And so anyway, long story is, I was in Nebraska. I never thought in a million years as a place I'd go for fun, but I actually did have a very good time there. And it's on the way back. I was, the plane stopped over in Denver and picked up more passengers, and there happened to be a empty seat right next to me, the middle seat. And there I see this gorgeous woman coming down the aisleway, and I was saying to myself, it's never the case, never that the gorgeous woman sits next to me. So I'm looking at her, expecting her to keep walking by, but sure enough, she stops, and her seat was next to mine. So
and you had a choice when she sat down, right? You had a choice, talk or not talk.
Yeah, but I'm not the smooth brother like you, so.
No, that's what I'm saying. I know you. That's what I'm saying. Well, I'm not saying you're not smooth. I'm just saying that,
No, but I'm not.
You had a choice. Yeah, you're like. I'm thinking the Hugh I know is like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna play Scrabble on my phone, you know.
Well, that's a good thing. Probably there was no Scrabble phones back then, but because maybe the story would have been different. But no, we just said hello, and you headed home, and then she kind of took over.
All right.
And yeah, we had a long conversation all the way.
Excellent. So tell me, as a man, about your internal conversations. So you meet this beautiful woman, and I can attest to that, right? You meet this beautiful woman, you have this conversation. What kind of internal conversations? Because again, we're coming from the backdrop of I've done this before, you know, and it didn't turn out well. So what are the internal conversations you are having that say, you know what, I'm willing to open up again, right? I'm willing to open up and take this chance and do this. What are the signs that you were seeing that made you feel like I'm brave enough? Because I know many men who, once their hearts kind of like close up, opening them requires, like, you know, the jaws of life. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I know it's hard to say. I don't know, even in the depth of my pain, whether I would ever say I was closed up. I think I was always open to trying again. But I would say that it was more that I didn't have the anxiety that I probably had before the first marriage about, okay, will this happen or won't it happen? And you know, by the way, when the plane landed in San Jose, you know, I gave her my card, and as she walked away, I realized, oh, I screwed up. You know, so Nika would have never done that. He would have made sure he got the number, because if she doesn't call me, I'll never see her again. So I was thinking to myself, oh well, I probably won't see her again. But I wasn't, you know, I don't want to make it sound like I was really despondent about it. It was just, okay, oh well. And of course, it was a pleasant surprise. I think it was a week and a half or so later that she did actually reach out. But I, you know, again, I think I was, the way I'd maybe phrase it is just I was willing to take whatever life was going to send.
Nice. Yeah, nice. And by the way, seeing as you keep bringing that, that's actually the smooth move. That's the smooth move. You know, the no pressure move, right?
Yeah.
No pressure move. I'm cool. I'm laid back. I'm not going to pressure you. That's the move, because we live in this pressure society now, you know, and even though it was way back then, we live in this society where everybody wants stuff like right now, and everybody's front and center, see me, look at me, and blah, blah, blah. And it's the people who are in the background that get noticed, you know, like, why isn't that guy dancing? You know what I mean? Because everybody's dancing, and everybody's like, well, why is that guy? That must be the guy who owns the club. That's the idea behind that move. So in a real sly way, you were being real smooth on that one, my friend, right? So you talked about the fact that you had a conversation on the plane and talked about family, and you realized that you had that in common. Once, you know, let's get post. You had the wedding, beautiful wedding, and I remember the pictures and in various places. And did you have a conversation about how many kids you were going to have? And that, were you specific in that, or was it just one of those things? Hey, we both know we want to have kids.
Yeah, you know, I think for me, two has always felt like the right responsible number. You know, for
what do you mean by responsible? You know, right? Yeah, you kind of have to clarify what right and responsible means.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And of course, this is very subjective, so I don't want to make it sound judgmental for those who have more or less. But it's more, you know, with two, I feel like you can provide. It's easier to provide your kids the kind of opportunities you want to give them, because you can, you know, you have more resources to put behind two kids than if you had, let's say, 5 or 6. So that's one part of it. The other part I do think about, there are over 7 billion humans on this planet, and our continued growth rate is not sustainable for the planet. In fact, they say one of the best things you can do to reduce your carbon footprint is to not have a child.
To have a child, right?
Uh,
Somebody tell our brothers in China.
well, they've been actually quite good about it, right?
Yeah, they have, but they did that when they already had like 5 billion, right?
Yeah, no, that's they recognized. I think when they got to 1 billion, that this is not going to work. So I think the there's that aspect of it as well. But I mean, even just things like we get to go not this year, but typically every year as a family we'll go on a nice vacation. And I always think about, oh, thank goodness there's not 4 kids, because how would we afford the plane tickets and hotel and whatever, all the tours and this and that, if you had to multiply by more. So I just feel like it's in that way it's and also just more attention for each kid. That's
when you're talking about vacation and thing, that's a first world problem, right? You're kind of talking.
True.
Yeah,
true.
you're actually talking from first. And I'm like, okay, somebody beat the Zambian out of him and the South African out of him. He's over here talking about that we can take a vacation every year. So no, that's not a good excuse. That's not a good excuse for having 2 kids, Hugh. I'm just going to let you know that.
No, but it's something people to think about, which is it makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
Because you end up doing I think fewer things. Depending on your income and your ability, but you end up doing fewer things if you have a large family. So anyway, for me, Michelle, she had said, oh, she was open to having many more. She still jokes about, her eggs still work. We can go for it again and try for a boy and all that stuff. But like I said, I just feel very blessed, very happy to have 2 healthy girls. And the other thing I'll also mention, because people will say when you have girls, oh, you should try for a boy, and I always feel like that's old fashioned. I think, yes, in the old days when you owned a farm or a business and you're going to hand it over to an heir, and your daughters are going to get married to somebody else, I could see, definitely you want to have somebody, successor, to hand things over to. But in this day and age, girls are in many ways running the show better than.
Yes, sir. I think the world would be better off if we had girls running a whole bunch of more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Men have done a really good job of screwing up stuff. I mean, we built a lot of stuff, and male-led areas we've made a lot of progress. But I think as a sentient place in terms of leading from the heart, and leading with the good of all people in mind. I don't think men do a really, really good job of that. So I completely agree with you. Another thing is,
if you look at the countries that have done the best job of responding to the pandemic, I don't think it's an accident that they're all led by female leaders.
No, I don't think it's a coincidence. You're very right. And you being the father of girls and me being the father. By the way, I love to see you with your girls. I love when you share things with your girls, and that's coming from me, who's also the father of girls. And from seeing as you like to bring it up, it was I joked with you once. I told you, I said it's the player's curse. So I given our scenario, I'm looking at you thinking, why did God do that to him? But I think that you're very right in terms of saying that you're shifting your mindset. Shifting your mindset. I thought my second one, who I had when I was actually in my 40s, would be a boy. Everybody thought my first one was going to be a boy, and I knew she was going to be a girl. But with the second one, she's like, she keeps me young. I have to play with her every day and run, and I have to keep myself fit because she's just so full of energy. But I've had to do that mind shift, which is it's like that passing on the farm, and passing on is really just about passing on your legacy to somebody who's got some sense.
Yeah.
What I mean? That's it. Just passing your legacy on to somebody who has some sense. And this thing about your name, and you're gonna lose. I in this environment, I know somebody who married somebody, and then they have taken um, his and her name and hyphenated it into their family name. My wife, I people tell me that I was way beyond my time, because my wife, we hyphenated her last name, because of a family, and people looked at me like, what's that? And this was in 1994.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter to me. I was like, honey, whatever, as long as you're good and you're comfortable and that's how you want to roll, I'm good with it. Doesn't change the fact that you're with me. That doesn't change. So that's a really good point. So I guess you answered my next question, which I sent to you, which was, do you still urine? I guess it's Michelle who's like, she can still go, and you're like, I'm good. So how do you show up in when we were talking earlier, you were talking about, needing, when you have issues or you have an argument, coming from this place where you wanted an immediate, response, and, working through counseling and that teaching you that something. But how do you show up now in your disagreements? Like what are the things you have to self articulate versus how you show up in terms of interacting with your wife? What does that look like? How does Hugh look like when he's disagreeing with his wife?
Well, something you said earlier, which I think is very important to emphasize, you talked about coming from a very analytical place, and you were describing me to a T. I think in all my discussions, all my disagreements, whoever it is, I tend to focus on the things we're talking about. And if I disagree with it, if I think there's a mistake in your logic, I'll jump on that and I'll litigate it to the nth degree. But what I learned was, that just doesn't work in marriage. And in fact, sometimes the disagreement you're having is not being articulated in words, but it's you may see it in emotions. You may see it in body language. And these just happen to be things that I'm not particularly good at picking up on. And so, a big thing is also realizing that, depending on the person's emotional state, that may not be the time and place to try and have a discussion. And so, I think I went from being the annoying partner who was always sort of picking on the scab of, no, we need to talk about this now. We need to talk about this now. Whereas today I'm more, I think I'm much more astute at saying, okay, let's table this.
Right.
And I think that just goes a tremendously long way in making relationships work better. But I also think, trying to think of a good example to give. There was once, I guess in my first marriage, there was a disagreement about painting one of the rooms in the house. And, I didn't, when I think back on it, I didn't really care that much about it. But the statement I made, which came from an analytical place, was, okay, let's wait until I get the bonus. And what I realized in hindsight was that I said that to a person who was feeling not very much in control of what was happening in their world. And here was an opportunity that they could have exerted some control and decision-making, and I squashed that. And I use that as an example because I feel like if you're overly analytical, you miss out on what are actually the really big, important things that are happening. But you almost have to be looking out for them. Because if you're not, then you'll end up being like me, just sort of stumbling your way through and then not realizing, why is this person now unhappy? What did I do? But it turns out, I actually did something significant.
Wow. You know what you just said? You just said something that caught me, because it goes to, and this is not like a pun, but you have to intuit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think women are naturally intuitive. This is something that is as natural as anything else, but men aren't. And I think the growth for men who are in relationships is really getting to a place of awareness where you are trying to be very intuitive. Because, like you said, there are more signs than just verbal signs. Many people think that people have written about, oh, women use more words, or women say, and there's actually an argument about that because it's not been a proven fact. I was reading just this week that there is no real research on the fact that women utter more words than men. They are just deeper at having the vocabulary to explain stuff, because they have been put in situations in their relationships from the time that they're growing up where they know how to speak about how they feel. And that may seem like they talk more when in reality they're just able to talk clearer about where they're coming from. Whereas with men, we are socialized and culturalized in a way where we don't necessarily use a lot of our words. So we're not in touch with addressing a specific feeling, a specific movement in, what I'm saying, in our lives. We don't have the word for it. So we act it out many times, aggression, anger, silence, all these things that we use as coping mechanisms. So I think you make a really good point about intuiting, in a relationship, about coming from a place where you are paying more attention to everything, just not what she's saying.
Yeah.
And that puts you in a place where you probably can approach it better. Not that you know what to do, because trust me, I'm where I am. I'm still trying to figure out some things when, it's like my wife surprises me every day. She'll tell me something or say something, and then she'll say something else and show me just how clueless I am. But that's part of the learning. The part is not, I think, being a person that says whatever and turning to a person that says, okay, how do I change that?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's for me, I know, and I share this all the time, that I was raised by wolves. I know my family I'm sorry. But I say I was raised by wolves because, I was raised by a single mother, a very strong single mother, who was trying to make her way in a society that didn't necessarily celebrate single women, and she really taught us a lot about resilient and being hard and going for the fight. And I think there's a lot of that dog in me. And I've had to grow up to learn how to be soft with myself first, because I'm my largest critic. I'm the hardest person on myself. And I'm learning that I'm hard on myself, and therefore I show up in the world around me hard, which is not good for all the softness that God has given me, because God has surrounded me with so much estrogen. Sometimes I'm confused about what to do with it. Thank you. That was actually quite insightful. You got me talking, and I was trying not to kind of like theorize and listen more than talk more.
Oh, you have more profound things to say, so it's that's good.
Rubbish. This is. So, have you ever heard of the 5 love languages?
I have, and I'm embarrassed to say, because it's something Michelle has brought up in the past. But I've never actually really spent the time to go and discover. So I know in your list of questions you had asked what are mine, what are hers, and the embarrassing answers I don't know.
Really?
No.
So let's share with the audience first, right? What they are. So
Yeah.
the 5 love languages are words of affirmation, which means that somebody who expects like verbal compliments, and you brag about them to others, or you write them love letters and you speak words to them that build security and help to lift them up. Acts of service, things that ease other people's burdens, washing dishes, pampering the other person, that kind of stuff. Like we were just talking about, getting into conflict and then making necessary changes, right? To that conflict. And then you have quality time, which is I focus, and I give you your undivided, my undivided attention, go for a walk, turn off all the electronics, not going to play Scrabble on a date, Hugh. Plan date nights, start a hobby together, making active contact, active listening, empathy, giving gifts. Gift giving is pretty straightforward. People who like to receive gifts, creating those tangible moments that show that you were thinking about me, and then physical touch, non-sexual physical touch, or if it's sexual, long hugs, gentle caressing. So those are the 5 words of affirmation: acts of service, quality time, giving gifts, and physical touch. As a segue to the audience, I like to make jokes with Hugh, with Scrabble. Hugh and I, how long have we been playing Scrabble against each other?
I don't know, but it's quite remarkable because it's like almost every day for, I don't know, 5, 7 years, 10 years. I don't know.
Something ridiculous. Hugh and I literally like play Scrabble against each other. We play, even we'll be in the most busiest season of our lives, and a game might go a whole day when we're real busy. But I was thinking about it again. I was like, we've been playing Scrabble for Lord knows. So we play Scrabble literally like every day against each other, and it's been years, and we laugh because many times he might post that he's somewhere at the same time he's playing a word. I will post that. I will be posting pictures of doing something and I'm playing a word. So it's hilarious because I'll chime in on his time and be like, "Yeah, get off, man." And Michelle will be like, "Imagine." It's absolutely hilarious. But let's get back to what we're talking about. So you are not you have no idea, like.
Well, I do. What I would say is, like my guess. I mean, really, I think Michelle has done a survey or something, so she actually knows what hers are. But my guess is hers are in terms of how she showing her how she appreciates love, or maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but would be the gift giving and the physical touch is what I would assume hers are. For mine, it's a little bit harder to place because I'll tell you what's complicated is that I'm an introvert. So, I get energy from my alone time and and so that can seem sometimes like I'm very distant and cut off, but it's just how I recharge. But it doesn't mean I don't like socializing or don't like being with people. So it's given that it's hard to tell because it depends on the mode I'm in.
Right.
If I'm in that mode where I'm recharging, then certain things that I may generally like may be things that it's like, okay, not now. So I'm not sure about myself. So that's.
I think you should probably like do a deeper dive on that, and I'll tell you why. It's not, for me, it wasn't so much about the fact that it's like life changing, but it was really a good way to understand how do I show up, how do I show up and completely like bless the person, bless my wife, bless my partner. And because my wife's thing is she loves literally like acts of service. If I'm outside, I'm mowing the lawn on a hot day, sweating, and I'm hot and I'm digging in the garden. You know me and my flowers, right? So I'm in the flowers and I'm doing. My wife is, and I come in and I do the dishes, and my wife is hot for me. You know what I mean? And the Marlboro man, with the horse and the rope around, that kind of image. Yeah, that's her. Acts of service, will get my girl going, all day. And for me, it's funny because I think that sometimes our ologies, our whatever pathologies that we grew up with, become the things that we kind of translate into being love language. Like I love physical touch for me. And that's because honestly, my mother was a working mother.
Yeah.
She worked real hard. We would be left with, the people were taking care of us, whatever. And, she worked to grow her career. She would travel for school. I remember her leaving us with family for Lord knows how long. So for me, I think out of my ologies, that kind of grew, that I feel reassured when I'm touched. Now the problem is when you are with somebody who doesn't understand and doesn't give you what it is that helps you thrive.
Yeah.
So if you are with a partner that is not real big on touch, and that's what you're craving and that kind of thing, and I think that's where um, it helps. So just it was something to just throw at you,
Yeah.
and
Um,
clearly,
it was good that it was a good way uh, to challenge me, because it's something literally I haven't thought about. I know Michelle had brought it up many years ago, maybe even before we got married, and was like love language, because I had read uh, oh yeah, this is terrible. I'm wanting to now recite a book, and of course I'm forgetting the name of it.
yeah,
But
you remember,
I read a book that talked about love, and it's really, for me, had been my sort of reference guide. So it's almost like, no, I'm good. I don't need other references. But the reality is, I think it's always good to learn more and understand more, especially given that this is something she seemed to be excited about.
right?
So and for the reasons that you mentioned, I think it's very true that um, that's another way in which relationships can miss, which is I think where you assume that the things that you value are what's going to work for the other partner,
Right,
when actually many times it's very different.
right. You show up with a brand new, beautiful car, thinking that, oh man, I done blessed my girl, and she's like, a car,
That's right.
and I've had many kind of similar situations like that where I'm thinking, oh, it's birthday, and I show up because I'll give an example. My wife hates jewelry. She's not like a jewelry person, and there was a point in my young life when I started to kind of make some money that I felt like, oh yeah, I can. Because when I'd come home with nice pure gold
Yeah.
necklace, and yeah, present it real nice, and I might as well have brought like a pig. My wife doesn't eat like pork, so I might as well have brought like a pig in the house and said, hey honey, I brought a pig for dinner. So
Yeah.
she's like, dude, this is not me. I would rather you just go in the kitchen, cook some food, and think about the meal. You plan it, you cook it, and sit me down and eat now, and I'll harp about that all week long. Whereas this little piece of gold, it would sit. I'd buy something, and she'd ask me like, "Where's the gift receipt?" Well, wow, wow. Well, my brother, I'll be honest with you. This has been a really, really great conversation, and I look forward to us having just life convos. I think that you bring a lot of wisdom in certain areas, and maybe one day we'll also just have business talk. I've been sharing. I just came off of Unleashing the Power Within with Tony Robbins for the last 4 days, like 14 hours plus a day. It was absolutely, absolutely mind blowing. And for me, who spends a lot of time, um, again, self judging and doing a lot of things that, some of these ologies, I think one of them is this voice, this voice that I've always had, this voice that has always pushed me, compelled me to say, I want to create an environment where young men and men my age who haven't had access to just heart,
Yeah.
just having a conversation about heart, just being able to dive down. Because I know I come from a place where that wasn't necessarily always embraced. If you acted like you were coming from heart, you were a punk.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's really what the Wholehearted Men Show is about, and I love to have conversations with guys who are trying to get there and have, are willing to reach into places that seem uncomfortable. And I really want to thank you for being vulnerable and being open and sharing some things which I know I have a gut feeling you haven't shared publicly, in with a lot of people.
Yeah. Well,
So
certainly not in this format.
right. So the bravery to actually be open, I commend you for that, and I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate that you shared it with us here at Wholehearted Men. And I honestly look forward to having you come visit with us again and having another conversation about whatever the topic is going to be here. So I know you're a busy man, and thank you for making the time. Love to your great family. Tell Michelle I always appreciate her letting you go for a little bit to hang out with me, and expect my response to the word you put down in a little bit. Okay.
All right. No, thank you so much.
All right, Hugh. Yeah, let me make sure that I transition us out of. I want to make sure that I transition us out of here with the Wholehearted Men show theme song. But I will catch up with you soon, my friend, and you definitely take care. All right.
All right. Thanks,
All right, man. Bye bye.
The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. You're listening to Wholehearted Men with Sonica.